one thing we never talked about is what rulers a beginner should get.
Okay.
I think we would briefly discuss that.
Okay. If you didn't have any rulers
at all,
and you were just starting out on your quilting journey, which ruler would be the best ruler for you to get what measurement? Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought.
I think as a standard size, your what is it? There's 6 by 24.
Or in my case, 6.5 by 24.5, because all mine come in half-inch increments or full increments.
Yes. Is a perfect size to have as a long ruler. So you need one long ruler at least. Mm-hmm. By Quilter Select, their size is 7.5 by 24.5, and I love this, that it's just a little bit wider than the standard.
Yeah,
6
mine's
inches.
8.5. So if I'm cutting an 8.5-inch
8.5.
border, 8.5-inch border, this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah, and it's just, I love the fact that it's just a little bit wider than the ruler I grew up with, which was the 6-inch.
They also have a 12.5-inch one. And it's, a 12.5-inch by 24
by 24. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so if you're doing,
heaven.
if you're doing some big borders or big set-in triangles or anything where you need a big long strip, and it needs to be 12.5, you could cut with this ruler.
So,
this
bottom line, you need at least one long ruler.
One
that's
long
24 inches long, by whatever width you can find. 6
or
would
a
be,
Ford.
Yeah, 6 would be kind of your standard.
Right.
I love my 8.5, and if I'd seen a 12.5, I would have grabbed that up too, because wider, it gives you a little bit more.
Well, a wider one will do anything the littler ones will do.
And so anyway, you need at least one long ruler. Mm-hmm. That's ruler number 1.
Yep.
The next ruler that I tell a beginning quilter to get would be your standard 12.5-inch square ruler. Mm-hmm. Reasons being, that's the size of a lot of blocks. It will help you trim up your blocks, your smaller units, to the correct size as you're sewing. So it's important to have something for trimming up your blocks and or block units. And 12.5 is a great starting size.
It's a pretty standard size.
It is. Now, I have bigger rulers. I have, let's see, what's this one? This one's an 18-inch square ruler, and I love it because sometimes 12.5 isn't big enough. So you will eventually need bigger square rulers. But to start out with, I highly recommend the 12.5.
Or you can get a baby one for 1.5-inch cutting.
And then I typically recommend one more ruler.
Yes.
As a beginner. So you've got your long ruler, you got your big, fairly large square ruler. I think you need a smaller square ruler.
For subcutting.
For subcutting. For cutting your smaller block units, for trimming them up, for subcutting strips. Because you don't really want a big giganto ruler when you're cutting a 2.5-inch strip, because it's just too much slip. You get more control, I think, from a smaller ruler. So I recommend the
6.5.
6.5 is a good standard size.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one over here that happens to be 8.5, but whatever, something small in the 6.5, 5.5, 4.5-inch range, I guess, would be your third ruler. So if you are watching this and you are starting out,
those are supposed to be non-slip.
I know. Not when you lean on them. Good point. Okay, watch here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
She stuck her tongue out at
yes,
me on the other
did,
video,
and she deserved it.
So anyway, I deserved it.
Yes, you did. I don't know what we were talking about,
but I deserved it.
You deserved it.
You're hilarious. So anyway, if you're just starting out and you're a beginner, get yourself a 45-inch, a 45 millimeter rotary cutter, at least an 18 by 24-inch self-healing rotary cutting mat, and 3 rulers. The 24-inch by something ruler, the 12.5-inch square, and then we're both thinking 6.5 inches is a good.
Those were the 3 rulers I started with, the 12.5.
And you can make your quilt
by
with that.
24.
And that is all you need.
Yeah.
But you'll find that other size rulers help you do other things, like your little 1.5 by 1.5.
Yes.
It's for what she's doing. That's a great ruler for something we were making, so you got it.
Right.
And that's how I acquire other rulers too. And then there are also specialty rulers. Let me show you a few.
I call these templates. I don't call them rulers.
You're right. This is a template. I need to just get that in my head. Anyway, this is called the Super Sidekick. It's by a company or by a designer, Jaybird Studio.
She needs some grippers on this because this is not going to see. Look at how that slides back and forth, back and forth.
So let's just put it like that so you can see it. It's designed to cut triangles and half rectangles.
So there's the triangle.
And so these are the shapes and diamond shapes. These are the shapes you can cut with this ruler. And you follow her instructions and it will show you how. She has another ruler that I really like called the hexagons. Let's put it like that. And it's used to cut hexagons, and then also these little triangle shapes that you work that you often sew to hexagons in order to sew them into a quilt. And then she's got these other shapes as well that you can cut with this and the markings that are on the ruler. I have this is Creative Grids. She's going to love this.
Yay.
This is one specifically for cutting hexagons, but as you can see, it's hexagons with borders, kind of almost like a log cabin-ish. So you can get that kind of... This one I like for cutting circles or marking circles for quilting. So it's kind of one of those... versatile templates that I can use for both of those things.
I would dare to say there are millions.
There's a billion of rulers that you can use.
Oh, not millions? You think there's billions?
Oh, I'm sure.
Have you counted them? No, you haven't counted them. So let's go back to my millions.
She caught me.
I did.
I have not.
I don't think there's billions.
Gone out and
I don't think there's billions. I think there's only millions. There's several. The's one for every shape.
There's more than one. Can we agree on that?
There's more than one.
There you go.
And there's one for every shape you can possibly think of.
And also, there are rulers for making special kinds of block units. Templates for making special kinds of block units, like half square triangles, like flying geese, like square and square units. And so, pineapple block. If you're having trouble... A log cabin. If you're having trouble with any of those coming out correctly, these specialty rulers sometimes are just the ticket.
Right. I
can
agree.
really help you gain some accuracy.
Right.
And I could name companies that make them.
Oh,
if you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need to. There's just lots.
Every designer has their own ruler, it seems like. You know, they have their own technique, and so it just magnifies out there. So find what you need, find what you like, and I'm telling you, there's tons of videos on specialty rulers, specialty templates, all on YouTube. You just push in the name of like most all templates have the name on them. Like this is the Circle Cut by Easy Quilting. I bet if I put Circle Cut Easy Quilting,
you'll get
a video will pop up and show me how all the different ways I could use this.
Speaking of which, on Creative Grids, and you know this, there are QR codes.
Yes.
On the ruler themselves.
On the ruler themselves.
So you understand what a QR code is. You just take your phone, the phone camera, you shine it on that little square, and
it'll take you to a
little bubble
video.
will pop up and say, "Hey, do you want to go to this web page?" And it will take you directly to the page where the video is that explains exactly how to use this ruler.
Yep.
Now, you organize your rulers, these kinds of your templates, in a very nice way.
Yes. My rulers, I do them in these slotted things.
Yeah.
But my templates. You know those filing plastic, they look like a milk crate kind of, but they are for hanging file folders. And they're just about this big.
It is kind of a milk crate.
It's like a milk crate kind of thing, or,
And you've got
or a tub or something. And it's got 2 little slots for hanging file folders. And what I do, because this will come with a little booklet that tells all about how to use it. So I store that in a hanging file folder with all the paperwork and any kind of hexagon rulers. Like this is a hexagon ruler. I would put them kind of in hanging file folders next to each other.
So you've got
I wouldn't have them all in the same one.
Organized by categories.
Right,
So
and
like
I
your
have them
diamond rulers,
alphabet.
her hexagon rulers are kind of together.
Right, and I alphabetize them. So if I'm cutting log cabins and I have some log cabin rulers, I'll go to my hanging file folder. I'll look under log cabin, and there are my rulers or my templates. So yeah. That's how I organize those. And it's very heavy, so you want to store it in someplace where you don't have to pick it up and carry it around a lot. Because it is, once you get, 1,000,000 of these, it gets quite heavy.
So where do you, then that brings up, where do you store it? Is it up on top of a table somewhere?
No, it's on the floor.
Oh.
Because I have big, tall ones,
So you just don't move it?
I just don't move it. It has a home.
You don't lift it up to go through
No.
Because forget, God help you.
Yeah, there's a little stool right beside it that I can just sit down on.
That you just sit down on.
Leaf through
That's
it.
what I was wondering.
Yeah. No, I don't lift it. Oh, no, I couldn't lift it. It's way heavier than...
Because I would dare say that you have a template for everything that you might imagine.
Probably.
Yeah.
I have 1,000,000.
She's a gadget girl.
I have 1,000,000. I don't have 1,000,000,000, but I have 1,000,000.
She has 1,000,000. I've counted them.
Sure.
Let's finish then, unless there's other tools. Do you have any other tools you'd like to share?
I think those were the tools I had.
I'd like to share.
Yep.
Let's talk about special cutting situations.
Okay, I'm sitting down because I'm tired. I'm old. And
this has been a long segment for us, but full of important information that we want to give you. I really feel like I should be talking.
But anyway, I'm going to let Jennifer do this.
We're just talking heads.
Yeah, and then if I have my 2 cents to put in, I'll put it in.
Here, do this.
I'm gonna just learn something from Jennifer. So.
Hi.
Okay, get serious now.
Oh, all right.
All right.
Couple of special cutting situations, things you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
If you buy precuts, like for example, here's 5-inch squares. These are 2.5-inch squares. They oftentimes will come pinked along the edge. And so sometimes people worry about where exactly is that 5-inch measurement? Or in this case, where's the 2.5-inch measurement? Is it at the V or at the top of the little point along the pinked edge?
You know what'll help you decide?
You can measure it.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Exactly, and you should, because it may vary. But typically what I've found is that the deep part of the V to the other deep part of the V, not the point, but the V. From V to V is where you're going to get your 5 inches, or in this case, 2.5 inches.
Each company does it different though, so you need to measure.
So just take out your little ruler and measure to see where exactly is my 2.5 inches or my 5 inches.
Because you may have to put that pinking into your seam allowance.
You might, yes. Yeah. So it's good to have the knowledge so that you know what you're dealing with.
Right. Don't just assume that they're 5.5 inches from here to here. Really measure them.
Now, another special cutting situation is when you need to cut diamond shapes. Typically, the pattern will tell you to cut a strip first, and then you're going to cut a diamond from that. So, oftentimes, you're going to cut a 45-inch, using the 45-degree line on one side of the strip. Let me see if I got that. You will. So what I did was I lined up the 45-degree. This is still kind of making a sound. Along one edge. This 45-degree line along there.
It's on your ruler.
And so I was putting that on the bottom edge and getting this angle, which is a 45 degree. And then they'll tell me how wide the diamond should be. Let's say 2.5, just for fun's sake. So now that I've got this 45 degree cut line, I'm going to just measure as I normally would from that line, whatever the pattern says. I'm making up that it's saying 2.5, and then I'm going to cut again.
As long as you've got this line that you've already cut on a straight line, it's going to give you the same angle?
Yes.
Okay.
So then you end up with diamond shapes. So that's how you could cut a diamond. Now you can.
And these are biased, so you're not going to mess around with them a lot.
You're going to cut them right before you use them, and that's it. Now let's say, let me just make this straight again here on this edge. Oh, whoops.
She's got a new blade, people. I don't know if it's her mat or the table. It could be the table because there's a split in the table.
Yeah, I'm kind of bumping up against it, so I'm being a little freaked out, I guess. Let's say you needed to cut like a triangle. It depends on what kind of triangle. You could cut a right triangle by cutting a square. And then, wow, just not doing. And then cutting from point to point.
So there, good. Point to point.
And that's 2 right triangles, which you would use, for half square triangles or for the sky portion of a flying geese unit, that kind of thing. So you might need to cut those from a strip. You could also cut a 60-degree triangle from the strip by finding the 60-degree line on your ruler. It's another reason why these square rulers are so important. So
do you see she's got her rotary cutter closed? Because she's got it really close to her hand here.
Yeah, I was using it.
It's a habit that she's gotten into, that she closes that rotary cutter every single time.
Yeah, and if I wasn't, if I didn't do that, I was being really stupid here just a moment ago, using it as a pointer. So anyway, here's the 60-degree line. And the first thing you would do is put that on the bottom edge of your ruler.
The bottom edge of the strip.
Of the strip. The 60-degree line on the ruler.
See, I'm doing the thinking, she's doing the demonstrating.
Yeah, it's been a long day, folks. So just
that's okay.
Be kind. And then I'm going to make one cut here like that.
So that's basically your starter cut.
Yes.
The piece you just cut is just a toss away.
Okay. If I want a perfect 60-degree triangle, I'm going to use the 60-degree line on the top edge, and I'm going to cut.
So the first cut, the 60-degree was on the bottom. The second cut, the 60-degree on the top. And this will give you a perfect 60-degree triangle. And I isosceles triangle, maybe? Oh, don't go there.
Well, I think, because, oh my goodness, because I'm...
This is isosceles.
Well, that would mean that all sides of the triangle are equal.
See that? Oh, that's so nice.
So you could literally cut these. I wouldn't cut them this small, but you could. And then sew them together. You sew one upside down like this and one like that in rows, and then sew those rows together, and you've got a quilt.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So you just cut from a strip. So that's how you would cut diamonds and how you would cut triangles. That's another special situation.
And bring over that other one that we just cut from triangle.
Oh, yes. And then these are right triangles that you can cut.
Yeah.
So since I don't have the instructions, I'm not sure.
Well, it's 2.5. So you lay it on there. Now, this edge is not straight over here, so move it over a little bit. And she's just going to cut that and that. So cut that and that.
Okay. I would probably be
using your rotary.
So the rotating cutting mat is really useful for this. So put this, and then we want to make sure we got when we trim it, it'll be okay.
Right.
So I'm putting these lines right on that, and moving this so it's facing me, and then I'm just going to cut that way, and then I'm going to cut, and I can rotate this a little bit more for me, and cut that.
And now you're going to rotate it all the way around.
Whoops. There. And then I'm going to
rotate it all the way around. You're going to pick up your ruler. And you're going to line up all those edges.
All the edges that I just cut.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm going to move this so I can.
Right.
And then I'm going to cut the last 2 edges.
Mm-hmm. And this is template cutting.
And I want more of a. There. And now I've cut a hexie.
Right.
And hexagons, you can sew one side to each other, but you're going to need like a triangle to fit here in between the hexies.
Right.
Or you're going to have to do partial
If this
piecing.
were the right size,
Yeah.
you know, you could do that.
You could sew that little triangle there, and then you sew it to the next. If you have half hexies,
Right.
you can actually sew them one to each other,
Right. That's
which is
awesome.
another way of getting a hexagon quilt, but doing it fast.
Yeah, not having inset seams.
So that's
we'll talk about
another
that
kind
later.
of specialty cutting. And let me just look at my notes real quick and see. Oh, I wanted to talk about how to cut when the amount that you need to cut is more than your ruler. And let's say I wanted to cut 14 inches or something. I needed to cut 14 inches. Well, I got a 12.5-inch ruler, so that I can't cut 14 inches. So what do? I could take another smaller ruler and add the numbers together to get 14 inches. I could take a larger ruler. I like to use a larger ruler if I can, because that gives me one nice straight edge over on this side.
I would do it this way. Because
Oh,
this is
yes,
my
of
cutting.
course. Yes. Of course. That is what I do.
Yes.
So 14, this is what, 8.5.
This is where I get my calculator out. Just telling you. She can do it in her head. I can't.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so I need to move over like that. So this would be the 14.
And if I'm doing a bunch of these and I'm using 2 rulers, I'm getting my either magic tape out, that see-through tape, that highlight tape, or I'm getting one of my arrows out so that I don't have to think about this line anymore. I can use this line. If I'm using 2 rulers, I can use this over and over and over and over.
So to summarize, I can't cut the 14-inch square or whatever it is the pattern tells me to cut with my 12.5-inch ruler. I can't cut it with this thing. It's not wide enough. But combine the two and you can. And you want your longer ruler as your cutting edge. Duh. and you use whatever other ruler you've got, a smaller one. And you are lining both of them up at the bottom as a guide, and then if you've folded your fabric, you can line up the selvage here at the top just to make sure you've got parallel lines and that you're on straight of grain.
Yes.
And then you add up everything, and if you have to count the squares, I've counted the squares too, just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, because these are 2 half-inch together. They make 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So,
and if you needed 14.5, she'd just have moved it over there.
So once I've got it all aligned and I've counted to make sure I've got the right width, then I can take my rotary cutter and cut and get that wider.
Go ahead and do it. Let me see you do it.
Again, you just set your blade at the bottom. You start cutting up.
It's this table is why you're not getting a crisp cut. I can feel this table moving, and I can feel it bowing. So that's why you're not getting, it's not you and it's not the rotary cutter, it's the table.
Yeah, I kind of felt that too.
So go do it again, and because we don't have our 14-inch square yet.
Oh, that's quite right. So now we have a strip that is 14 inches, but to get the 14, I'm going to unfold this because I'm assuming I only need one, for my general purposes here.
Now, we talked about the salvage edge before and it having that white. This one is colored all the way out, but trust me, I can see that
There's
this
a salvage
is salvage there. So I'm not going to go and use this all the way out. This does have a salvage. So sometimes be aware of that the fabric doesn't always have a white salvage where the color starts, you know, a half an inch in.
And on the other edge of the salvage, it's printed all the way to the edge, but they did print their manufacturer's name there. But if you feel it, you can tell that that's the salvage.
Yes.
And you don't want that in your piece.
Right.
I allow about 3/4 of an inch from the edge. The salvage itself takes up typically about a half an inch. And as Dawn was saying, you want to leave a little bit more because the transition from that high thread count edge to the regular fabric varies a little bit. So you don't want any of that really in your thing.
And I will tell you that some of my friends who have quilted for years, they will bring their fabric home and they will just cut off the salvage automatic.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they go in and they clip about 3/4 of an inch in to an inch in, and then they tear it. And when you tear it, it has a straight line, but it also has, it affects the dye. And there's little like white streak marks that come into the fabric if it's heavily dyed. And so even though the edge is straight, you'll have to press it because it does kind of wave up the fabric. But once you press it, that is a straight line, but I would still go off and crisp up my line and get rid of that area. But I do know a lot of people who rip their salvages off. I don't tend to do that.
I don't either, but if you've ever seen a salvage quilt or a purse or any other project made with collected salvages, they can be really, really pretty. And so I keep telling myself at one point I'm going to, save those, but I just don't. But that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then you could just collect them and then make a quilt out of them or whatever.
So going back to what we were doing, we're trying to cut a 14-inch square without a 14-inch ruler.
Right.
And remember I said a while ago how I would have taken that line and used it, that tape? Because now we've moved it on.
Now I have to add.
And now we have to add again.
But I think it's, and then I don't want, let's see. I want at least an inch, I think, over there.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about the, so let's see, I've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then I've got this inch that will accommodate the
so you can see it real close. It's not a straight edge. That's what I meant about salvages not being straight.
Yeah.
So, excellent.
So we're going to be trimming the other side of this to square it up. Now I'm nervous about cutting.
Yeah, just go ahead and cut twice.
I'm aware that it's not.
It's the table.
It's the table.
So here we are at this is 6, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move that aside. She's going to turn it around just simply because
that's my clean edge.
This is her clean edge, and we're going to put it on that invisible.
Let's see, I did 6 in order to give myself extra room. So I really just want 5 to get 4. 5.5 plus 8.5 would be 14.
Right.
Or we can count the squares.
I don't know
1, 2,
how to read
3,
this
4,
ruler.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we
There
got
you go.
14. And I will.
And that's your salvage in down there now.
And I want to line
Make sure they're
this.
straight.
And then butt the 2 rulers.
You
Nest the 2 rulers again.
Together.
I'm not talking party parts, okay?
Okay.
Against each other, so that you're using the straightness of this ruler to straighten this ruler. Now I've got this edge to trim, and I will have, and I'm going to do it twice because that's just what's happening. And now I have a 14-inch square. Now, why would you ever need a square that big? Typically, I find that it's for setting triangles. So if you've ever set...
Jennifer, what is a setting triangle? I have no idea what you're talking about.
I probably shouldn't have brought it up unless I had an example behind me. So we will pop in a picture at this moment right here. See in front of you.
Yes. Voila.
Do you see how the triangles are, the blocks are set on point?
Yeah, on point.
They're set on point like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And
so it creates, when you have a straight edge up here and a straight edge that comes down here, you've got a triangle right here.
And you've got one that's for the corner, and then one that's on the side. And they're different kinds of triangles, and you cut them different way. So in this case, I might be asked by the pattern to cut diagonally from corner to corner. Once. Or I might be asked to cut twice, depending on whether it's the corner triangle setting triangle I'm trying to make, or the side setting. One thing I wanted to point out, if the instructions are telling me to cut in both directions, I'm going to try to move my mat rather than move the or put it on a rotating cutting mat if it happens to be.
This is not big enough.
It's not big enough, see. But if I had one big enough, but most likely what's going to happen is I'm going to have to move my
most
mat.
likely you could go down to this size mat.
Yeah.
And then it will rotate easier than the big giant one.
And another tip is if I'm cutting from corner to corner and I don't have a super long ruler, or maybe it's a really large square that I've got, you can fold this in half. Of course, you have to make sure you've matched everything and it's folded in exactly in half. And then you've got a shorter distance to cut if needed. You don't have that other point to tell you exactly where this center is.
I'd be measuring.
So you would either be measuring or pressing so that you know where the center is, so that you know that you're cutting exactly through the center.
I've never done that.
That is a trick that you may have to use in certain situations. I know I've done it at least once, but I don't know why. Because this is pretty long.
And the reason I've never done that is because that's when I would use the measurements on my mat. If my square is way bigger than I can handle with my ruler that I have, I would use the lines on my mat. So see, there's a big line on my mat here that's 45 degrees. So I would just put this.
You put it.
Yeah, I would make sure it's straight on the lines, and I'd make sure that this diagonal and this diagonal are the same. And then my ruler would still extend on this line, and on this line, see.
And you'd get a
if
nice
if I needed to use, if this ruler wasn't long enough, I would still use 2 rulers, and I would find my line on here that I could line this up with.
Oh, the 45-degree line right here.
Yep. See how I would line that up, and then I would butt this ruler right up against it.
So she could get
I said butt.
She did.
Nest the ruler right up against it.
Nest the 2 rulers.
And then see how that gives me that straight edge. So that's one of the times that I would use. I usually typically don't use the lines on my mat, but that would be the time I would, especially if I have to use 2 rulers to get the width that I need. Because obviously this is 14 inches here, but this is way bigger here. This is 12 and a half. 13 and a half, 14 and a half,
whatever
15,
the hypotenuse
16, 17,
of this would be.
19 and 3/4.
Yeah.
So who has a
pi
19
is
and
involved.
3/4 square or whatever you need? Well, if you had one of these 24 inches, you would have it. But what if this was a 20-inch square?
Yeah.
You know, those modern quilters, the more open their blocks are for quilting, the better for them. So for me, 14, this is a quilt to me. If this was all pieced,
I was just
14 inches.
She does not deal with numbers this hard. But another point is that I suppose we could have laid our fabric out and tried to cut using the lines on our mat. But both of us really think that it's better and more accurate to nest 2 rulers together to get the measurement you need than to use the lines on your mat.
Yes, and I've even been known to take some packing tape and tape my rulers together.
Oh, so they won't slip?
So that they're not going anywhere, see? And especially if I'm doing a lot of them. A lot of something.
I was going to say, I'd probably only do that if I was going to be making multiple cuts.
Right. Not if I'm just doing it one time.
If it's just one time, you just might do.
I'm not going to do that.
But if you're doing it multiple times, I love that idea.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because it gets you some security, and then also you don't have to, realign everything to get it to work.
Most of the time that I use multiple rulers is when I'm cutting a border to the exact length that I need it. So let's say I've overcut. I've cut it either the length of the fabric or I've sewed a whole bunch of width to the fabric strips together. And then when I'm trying to get it the exact length, I'll fold it in half. I'll divide my length in half, and that's how many rulers I have to get it exactly. So if my table's 8 foot, I could cut a 16-foot border on my 8-foot table. I would just slide this down to where my cutting is going to be. Sorry, all the stuff. And I would have my folded edge down here, you see, and then I'd have all my rulers lined up, however many I needed, to cut that length of fabric, and that's how I would cut it. So if there's a will, there's a way.
That's true. And
I'm going to stand up for this part. I just maybe broke the chair.
No.
I didn't?
You broke. It's all right. These things happen, and they were lying on the floor, so what do you want? Oh my gosh. It's okay.
I'll gladly give you a pressing surface for a ruler today.
Yes, thank you. And, just one more thing about cutting that I would be very silly not to mention, because it's exceptionally accurate, is the AccuQuilt system. And I have to kind of step over here to point it out. But you've seen me, I've got videos that show you how to use AccuQuilt to cut out your squares, to cut out strips, to cut out triangles, whatever.
I'm going to go home and watch that. I've never seen that.
They're very accurate.
Maybe that's why they're called AccuQuilt.
AccuQuilt, yes. And I got into the system as an Island Boutique ambassador, fell in love with it, and have expanded my system ever since. So I use a lot of that. And that's actually the reason I've never bought a stripology ruler, because this gives me the same thing without having to do that.
Awesome.
But I love the stripology rulers. But anyway, so another way to cut, and to cut accurately, is to use a cutting system. Scan and Cut is one, but AccuQuilt is the one I use and highly recommend.
And they're going to find that video where at?
Oh, on YouTube.
Inquiring Quilter?
Inquiring Quilter on YouTube. So the same place that you found this will be a video that shows you how to make half square triangles using AccuQuilt, and then also flying geese using AccuQuilt. And little by little, I'm converting my patterns to AccuQuilt as well.
Oh, really?
So that if somebody buys one of my patterns that's been updated, they will get the yardage and cutting instructions for rotary cutting, but they'll also get the yardage and cutting instructions for using AccuQuilt.
Wow.
Because with AccuQuilt, what you do is you cut a strip that's roughly the right size. You lay it on the die, you roll the die through, and the die cuts.
Sort of like we did the hexy shape, where we had the strip, and we just used the template. This would just use a die.
It could cut all hexies for you like
all day
that.
long.
Yeah, but it cuts.
I'm going to watch it when I get home. I can hardly stand it. So you go to YouTube, and then you type in Inquiring Quilter, which I always have to look up how to spell inquiring, because why couldn't you just come up with I'm a quilter or something like that?
I should have,
Because if you go to Inquiring Quilter and you learn how to spell it and it comes up, hit the subscribe, and then you don't have to look for it anymore. It'll just pop up. Every time we do something new, or every time Jennifer does something new, it'll just pop up in your programs. Yeah. And you can go, and then you don't ever have to remember how to spell inquiring again.
That's right.
There you go.
But it is INQUIRING Quilter, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
For inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds.
But I think we have covered everything that I wanted to cover.
Man, I hope so.
I have worn this lady out. She got so tired she had to sit down.
Well, no, my back just started hurting.
Yeah. So
I sit all day. If I'm not cutting, and I can usually stand about an hour and a half to get my recipe all cut out. And then I'm sitting the rest of the day. I'm at my sewing machine or, whatever. So I do get worn out a little bit faster than I used to. I am, Medicare eligible. So I get all the senior discounts. And I'm proud of it.
I'm sure you do. She's like, do you have a senior discount?
Does AccuQuilt have a senior discount?
I don't know. But if they do, she's gonna get
I'm
it.
gonna get it.
She's gonna ask for it, and she's gonna get it. That's for sure. So
Okay.
thank you for joining us on this 4-part podcast journey that discussed the second of the triangle of squares that skills that you need to know to be a quilter. So this was about precision cutting. And
Well, I hope they figured that out.
yeah, and the earlier podcast was about accurate pressing, right?
Pressing, and now cutting.
So join us in 2 weeks, and we will be discussing the
quarter-inch.
the heaven, the destination that everyone wants to get to in quilting, which is the accurate 1/4 inch.
Yep.
And we will show you tips and techniques, and I can bet that is going to be a 2-parter.
You think?
For sure.
For sure.
For sure.
We gab a lot, but we have fun.
We
want to
do.
have fun. We hope you have fun too.
And so thank you again for joining us. Make sure you click subscribe and then give us the thumbs up, because Dawn really likes the thumbs up.
I like the thumbs up.
So do I. And if you've got questions, please put them in the comments below, because I do check those and I will respond to your queries and your questions. If you've got a question, somebody else has it too. So ask it and we'd be happy to answer those. And we're also open still for ideas for things that you would like us to cover, so we know what we're going to be covering in the next couple of episodes, which will be accurate 1/4 inch. But we've got a lot of things that we can talk about and share with you.
You know us. We're talkers.
We do. We are.
Till next time.
Till next time. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.